Well, it's been a couple un-Kansas-like seasons for the Jayhawks, but Darryn Peterson is here to make us forget every bit of that.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Monday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Really appreciate you making us your first listen or watch to get your week going the right way. As always, you can listen to these episodes ad-free on Amazon Music as well. Right now, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and new customers can bet just $5. And if that bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Download it today. Special shout out to the everydayers who are here with us and all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. Man, the conversation, the chatter is really picking up in there because we are 4 weeks out from the start of the regular season. Let's go. Today, we are doing our 24th team preview. If you want to see all of those, we got a playlist. I'll link it up in the corner there on YouTube over Mr. Derek's head for those of you watching on YouTube. Speaking of which, we're talking Kansas Jayhawks today. Storylines, personnel, schedule, X Factor, all of this kind of stuff and more. Joining me to help do that, of course, is the great host of Locked On Jayhawks, Mr. Derek Johnson. DJ, welcome in, brother. Great to have you.
Oh, no, great to be here. And hey, for those who are part of the FanDuel betting circle, you can get Darryn Peterson plus 850 to win the Wooden Award. I don't know.
Ooh. In fact, we've got a FanDuel read later on. I've got some Big 12 championship odds lined up for that one, so that'll be fun to look at. Jayhawk believers, you're going to get some good odds if you think the Jayhawks could win that thing, because some people don't. So, quick run through last season, DJ. Jayhawks 21-13 overall, 11-9 in Big 12 play, finished 6th in the conference standings, lost in the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament to Arizona after beating UCF, who, by the way, Kansas beat in football on Saturday, oddly enough. 7th seed in the NCAA tournament, ended up losing to John Calipari and the Hogs, 79-72. Hunter Dickinson, leading rebounder and score, averaging a double-double last year. He is out the door along with a whole bunch of other people. We'll talk about that. DJ, here's where we got to start. I said it in the cold open that it's been two very un-Kansas-like seasons for the Jayhawks, and I think it's especially amplified because Kansas had that crazy long stretch of just like owning the Big 12 and nobody else sniffing it. The story we talked about a lot last year, this is the first time since the 1981-82 and 82-83 seasons finishing outside the top three in the conference standings. 6th last year and tied for 5th the year before. My question to you, does that get fixed this year? Do the Jayhawks get back into the top three?
Man, that's tough because it's like you have Houston, you have BYU, Arizona, and there's a lot of good schools that you could realistically finish 4th or 5th in the Big 12 and still get, a 2 or 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, still have a lot of success. I am going to say they get to that point, though. Now, realistically, it could be like 3 teams are tied for 3rd or something in the Big 12, so it's like technically you got there.
We'll count it. We're counting the T. There's a T, we're still counting it.
And I get why from a national perspective, people are a bit lower on Kansas because of where it was last season.
Yep.
But and really for the last 2 years, when you're AP preseason number 1, you almost feel like you get spurned a little bit when it happens back-to-back years. This is a much different core of players. And I would just say, look at the bigger picture of what Bill Self has accomplished. Until last year, every single season, he had been a 4 seed or better in the NCAA tournament. It's just the consistency. And now he gets back to things where when you look at when Bill Self has an All-American lead guard, you go back to Sharon Collins in 2010 and 2011, or 2009 and 2010, excuse me. You win the Big 12 one year, make the Sweet 16. The next year, you're the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. You then fast forward to his next All-American lead guard, Frank Mason. They get a 1 seed, they go to the Elite 8. Next season, you have Devontae Graham, All-American lead guard. You get a 1 seed, you make the Final Four. And then you go to Devon Dotson in 2020, All-American lead guard. They were going to be the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. When Bill Self has an All-American lead guard, which I think they're going to have this season, I know Darryn Peterson is technically like a shooting guard wing. They're having him handle the ball. He is playing as the lead guard for KU. Bill Self tends to do pretty special things.
Man, it's going to be so fun to watch that. This is a special young man. The question is just, what is the level of special? And that's what we're going to find out. Derek, I did some digging on this. You know, I'm a dork and I love stats and research. I started looking at it. You know, Kansas back-to-back years finishing outside the top 3. I wanted to know, when was the last time that happened 3 years in a row? So I went back and I did the research. Do you have any idea when the last time the Jayhawks finished outside the top 3 in conference standing was?
Okay, so it gets interesting too, because then you start getting back into like the Big 8, and then it's like it's harder to do because there's just less teams. I'll say it probably happened in like the mid to late 70s.
Well, here's why you're dead wrong, my friend. It's literally never happened in the history of Kansas. Like, literally, I went all the way back to this guy named James. You've heard of him, that started this great game. Never in the history of Kansas Jayhawks basketball have they finished outside the top 3. I mean, it like, again, going back to what you said about the longevity and the consistency, it ain't just Bill Self, man. It's this program, one of the preeminent blue bloods. And I think you're right. Until we just start to see a complete downturn, Bill Self deserves the benefit of the doubt, right? And I think that's very true. That said, right, we had another health scare for Coach Self this offseason. Derek, are any updates there? Like, is there any sort of concern about what role his health might play this season?
So he seems to think it's not going to, and this is kind of I don't want to say continuation, but it seemed to be kind of a similar thing to what kept him out of the NCAA tournament a couple years ago.
Right.
But this one, he kind of mentioned that like it was just a much easier recovery process. Like that one wasn't just he missed the NCAA tournament. It took him time during the offseason to be able to get back and be fully coaching and be, you know, standing up and running around. He was back like running around in practice like a week later with this one. This one was much more of I don't want to say routine. Like anytime you're dealing with stuff with like the heart, that's not routine, right? But this one was definitely more of like I remember he did a press conference like a week after it happened, and he was like, if we had a game today or whatever, like I'd be coaching. It wouldn't be a big deal. So it obviously gets in the back of your mind, and the fact that this has now happened again it certainly makes me wonder. And we've had a lot of episodes about this, like, could this be Bill Self's last year? Could he have a couple more seasons, right? Because from a family perspective, you'd imagine like he's accomplished so much, and you start to wonder, like, if you're Bill Self's wife, Sydney, do you talk to him about like, what are we doing here? Let's have one more fun year. And I don't know if that'll be the case or not. Like the way they're recruiting right now certainly makes me think he's going to be along for at least a few more years for Kansas. But I think for this specific season, I don't really have any questions right now. We've seen other coaches. You think of Coach K, he had some like health stuff and back stuff throughout his time at Duke, and he was able to kind of power through it at different times. Maybe you miss a game here or there or whatever, but KU is well equipped too with the assistant coaches. Jock Vaughn coming over, former NBA head coach, former Kansas, All-American guard. So I'm not really concerned about it right now, but it definitely has to be a kind of constant in the back of your head. Like, could this be something that pops up at any point in time?
Man, and we sure hope not, right? Like this, just anyone in life, we want them to be healthy, right? Like health, but man, just one of the titans of our game, and want him to be able to stick around as long as he wants to do it. And you'd hate for his body to tell him, hey, you're done. All right. I can't believe we've gotten multiple minutes into this thing and we haven't really talked much about Darryn Peterson. I know you did a little bit, but good grief. This student, I know we're going to talk personnel in the next segment, but it would be a crime for us to wait till that point to talk about Darryn Peterson and how special is he going to be. Derek, I said it a second ago, and this is what I want to ask you, right? Like, we expect him to be special this year. I think most people have him, there's kind of this top 4 core of freshmen, along with Cam Boozer at Duke, with AJ DeBanza at BYU, and Nate Ament at Tennessee. But at 247, at least, and maybe other places as well, Darryn is number 1 in this class. In your mind, what is the level of special we're talking about here?
I mean, Bill Self has said, and he hasn't just said it once. Like, Bill Self has been known to at times like over exaggerate, especially during off-season talk. But the fact that he's now said it multiple times, that this is the best freshman that he has ever recruited to Kansas.
Jeez,
right? You're talking about, Andrew Wiggins was a second-team All-American as a freshman, put up 17 and 6. Joel Embiid was obviously a freak show before he got injured in what he was able to do. Josh Jackson had a great freshman year.
Is that a neck for what?
I'm trying to remember now. He's had so many injuries now in his NBA career. They blend together. Yeah, back. No, but you think about like in all the freshmen and 5 stars and McDonald's All-Americans that he's recruited, and he has said that multiple times now. And it feels like this is the most ready-made. Like some of those recruits, like Wiggins, part of the reason he was the number 1 recruit was about the athleticism and the potential. With Darryn Peterson, it's like he's the number one recruit because this is what he is. He prepares unbelievably. He's working after practice every day with Jacques Vaughn. He's getting up shots. He's just a fearless competitor. He just does everything. Like he rebounds, he passes, he shoots, a dream of a player. And I keep like getting worried that we're getting too high on the hype meter for a player we've never seen a college basketball game. But every story that comes out, it feels like it raises the bar. I mean, there was like a tweet a couple weeks ago from Fran Fraschilla, who was at a KU practice, and he was like, yeah, he hit 8 threes in a scrimmage. And it's like, what is this? I don't know. I'm getting worried by how high the hype meter is, but I'm fully in on it at the same point in time. Like I said, plus 850 to win the Wooden Award. I have a share of that. Let's just say that on FanDuel.
I love that energy, Derek. That's great. And for every time I've seen like that video of him like setting up shop at Fog Alley, like, right, like he was sleeping. It just feels like he's got a good personality too, right? Like it's not just about what he does on the court, but it feels like he's enjoying the college life. He's got good energy, a good personality, man. And that's just good for the game of college basketball. I'm excited to see it. Well, look, Dajuan Harris is gone. Hunter Dickinson gone. KJ Adams gone. Everyone knows about Darryn Peterson, but he can't carry this load by himself. Who else is going to come around Darryn Peterson and help get the Jayhawks to where they hopefully want to be back at the top of the Big 12? We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about Peloton, who is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. So whether you're running, lifting, cross-training, it's all done with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan and stay motivated and reach your peak performance, because that's what we're all trying to do, just like Darryn Peterson. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps. It suggests the right weight for you. I'm terrible at knowing the right weight. I'm like, oh, that was way too much. And it corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. And they've got personalized class recommendations too that help keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and your energy each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Derek, obviously we want to talk about this year's personnel, but I think a big part of this storyline is who is gone, right? The last main vestige of the 22 national champions, Dajuan Harris, is out the door. Hunter Dickinson played more years than we thought in Lawrence, Kansas. And now he is gone. KJ Adams gone. And it really feels to me like it's kind of a new era now, a reset, right? Darryn Peterson is now the face of the franchise, if we can put it in pro terms. In your mind, is that reset a good thing after what we've seen the last 2 years?
I think it is. Like, I don't know. I feel almost disrespectful saying like addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
And those guys accomplished so much. And I think all of them had like a lot of good things. And I do think to a certain extent, like all of those guys got put in an unfortunate situation that they were all together. Like I think Dajuan Harris was the starting point guard on a national championship team. They had the right pieces around him to optimize what he was. With KJ Adams, he was the starting center on a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, right? They had the right pieces around him when you have Jalen Wilson and Kevin McCullough and Grady Dick to make that work. With Hunter Dickinson, like he went to an Elite Eight with Michigan as a 1 seed, and they had the right wings and players around him to make it work. It just felt like all three of those guys didn't work together. Right. I think any of them could have worked is if you built it around them. But it made it difficult when they were together in terms of like defensively, there were certain limitations of what you could and couldn't do with Hunter Dickinson. And then offensively, there were certain limitations of what you could and couldn't do with KJ and Dajuan. So it made things difficult, I think, on Bill Self. And I think that's the thing this year. Like, I have certain questions about like, okay, what's the shooting going to be like and stuff like that. But I think from a game plan perspective, Bill Self is so good in season at figuring out what is going to be the best defense for his team and how they're going to adjust to ball screens and the little intricacies of the game. But I think last year, in the last 2 years, they've been more limited in how they could do that. And I think this year it's a much more athletic, much more switchable team that he's going to be able to tinker with it a lot better. And so I just think this team is going to be more of like the dog-like mentality and the athleticism that Bill Self really, really wants.
There's not much back in terms of returners, but I think the biggest name everybody's looking forward to just see blossoming this year is Flory Badunga, who entered the portal this offseason, thankfully decided to stay. Love to see that. Elmarco Jackson back from injury, obviously didn't get to play last year. And Jamari McDowell back from a red shirt last year as well. Contributed, he played like 30-ish games his freshman year, and then a couple guys that are more of the walk-on variety. But really, man, to me, this is about Flory and how can he break out, and Elmarco and what can he do coming back from injury.
Yeah, and I was looking back at a couple guys that I found interesting in Flory's development. Udoka Azubuike, who from year one, he got hurt in year one, and then year two, he broke out. He was like all Big 12 third team player, very efficient, dunked everything. The guy that I've kind of been comparing this to, because I think there's some interesting comparisons as a team, was Cole Aldridge. So Cole Aldridge goes from being like the fifth big man on the national title team, McDonald's All-American center, to all of a sudden he's the starter the next year with Sherron Collins. I already made the comparison with Darryn Peterson to Sherron Collins. And that was kind of year 1, too. It was Sherron and Cole, just like it's Peterson and Flory as kind of your two stars. And then you've got a bunch of like role players around him. And Cole Aldridge was a really good shot blocker. You know, he wasn't the most diverse game offensively, but like he had enough to score some points and get angles and dunk the ball and stuff. Good rebounder. I think there's a lot of interesting pieces there that make it with Flory. The key for me is you know, can Flory stay out of foul trouble, right? That's always a big thing with young bigs, but like there were some moments last year where you could see this dude is like athletically just a freak. And if he can be more consistent and be stronger and do a good job boxing guys out defensively, like the sky's the limit. Flory is a absolute freak. And I'm expecting very big things. I'm expecting, you know, close to double-digit rebounds per game, 2-3 blocks per game. I think him and Darryn Peterson is going to be a really fun duo.
Yeah, man, the bookends of the lineup, man, I just am so excited about. And then that means what's 2 through 4 look like, basically, is I think a lot of the question. In terms of the portal, I think a lot of the frustration of the last 2 years, Derek, if I read the tea leaves correctly, is with like there's been some misses in the portal and evaluation and some things like that. So you look at these guys coming in: Jaden Dawson from Loyola, Trey White from Illinois, Melvin Council Jr. He's a Bonnie. Well, now he's a Jayhawk, but he was a Bonnie. Guy Nala coming over, played in Canada. This dude is 26 years old, gang. What are we doing? What do you make of this portal haul? Do you think it can kind of change that narrative we've had the last couple of years for the Jayhawks?
You definitely wished that there was like one more like big piece as part of it. They were going for like a Darian Williams. Like that would have been the perfect kind of finishing touch to this,
which
right?
We thought he was like, right?
Yeah.
I talked about that.
Of course. I still think this was a solid Porter class, right? Like I think people are sleeping on it a little bit from a standpoint of going back to all the misses they had in the portal. They changed their approach this offseason. They said, you know what, forget going for the big stars and everything. Go for the fits. Go for the role players. We have the dynamic player in Darryn Peterson. Find the guys that will fit around him. Not too dissimilar from what Duke did with Cooper Flagg, though they also had like a couple other first-round picks on their teams. That's a little bit different of a situation. But Jaden Dawson is a good shooter, good defender, right? That fits perfectly if you have somebody dynamically on the ball. Melvin Council is somebody who has been a driving force for this team in terms of his mentality with the practice habits and with working hard, and he's going to be a really good defender. I forgot to answer about Elmarco Jackson. You asked that question earlier. Sure. He's somebody who can be a really good defensive player on the outside, and the hope is that his offensive game comes around a little bit more this year. All these players fit in as role players. Trey White is another one of those, is Illinois, kind of a jack of all trades that you can play as the 4. That the idea is going to be you just have a nice kind of mix of role players that you don't need them to be star players. You have that with Darryn Peterson, and that you have enough there. And then you look at the other theme of like athleticism. That was another thing Kansas went out and got in the portal. You think about with Trey White, they're going to be playing him at the 4. Like he's pretty athletic for a 4. Melvin Council, very athletic, fast guard. Like the guy that he kept getting compared to from a KU perspective was Tyshawn Taylor. Marco Jackson, obviously not out of the portal, but he's like a very athletic guard as well. Jaden Dawson's got everybody's seen that one. You know, Kansas fan has seen that one big dunk he had at Loyola Chicago. Like he's got a good bit of ups and athleticism to him as well. You bring in some freshmen who are really good athletes with Cole Rosario and some. Yeah, and I mean, Paul Mbia is center you brought on from overseas. He's got like 7'9" wingspan. It's unbelievable. So when you look at length, when you look at athleticism, like this team has that now. And yes, even though I do have some questions again about the shooting and who's going to be your other like dynamic scorers, it's just going to be much more of a Bill Self team where guys fit into their roles and have that a little bit better than trying to be like, hey, AJ Storr, we know you've done this in the past. Can you do this for us here? Or Rylan Griffin, we want you to do this. And it just never really works.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think that's my biggest question too, is where's the sharpshooting coming from? But we'll see how it all works together. Yeah, it's funny enough. We talked about Darrion Williams, who winds up going to NC State. Paul Mbia, who you just mentioned, initially committed to NC State, rescinds on that, and then comes over to the Jayhawks. Kind of cool because he and Flory are both Congolese. And so hopefully that's been helpful for both of those guys. Mentioned Darryn Peterson, Cole Rosario, another he reclassed, committed over the summer. Calderon coming over from OTE, a big small forward. Corbin Allen initially committed to San Diego, ultimately decides to come to Kansas, which I think is so cool because he's a KC kid. He played for sure. Speaking of Sharon Collins, right? Is that right? In high school?
Yes, they won a state championship nearby. He's somebody who could be kind of a long-term developmental guy, but they've had some success with those guys. So.
Man, so you look at all this, and obviously, Derek, again, we think about all the guys that are out because it wasn't just the Dwan and the KJ and the Hunter. There was AJ Storr and Diggy Coit and Zeke and Rylan and Zach Clement, Shaquille Moore's. I mean, it feels like half last year's team either went to Texas A&M or Maryland. Speaking of which, man, Porter Riquise Passmore popped his Achilles. Thoughts to him as he recovers from that. So, Derek, all of that said, all of these guys, as you look at it, who is your starting five right now? And I know it's like, that's the cliche thing because it's all about who finishes games and who gets starters minutes, but everybody wants to know who's my first five. So as it stands right now here at the beginning of October, who's your starting five?
Yeah, so I mean, the locks are Peterson at the 1, which I think defensively Peterson will basically be a 3, but offensively he'll be the 1. Flory at the 5. I think Trey White's a lock at the 4. You don't really have a lot of other like wing true 4s on the roster. That is something where if like you play a matchup with a team who has a couple good wings, I don't know how Kansas will match up there. And then the real competition is at kind of the 2-3 spots.
3. Yep.
Kansas might play 3 point guards at once. They could go basically Peterson, Elmarko, and Melvin Council. Jaden Dawson could be that guy. And the guy that's been kind of picking up that steam is Cole Rosario.
Really?
Going back to the shooting thing, Rosario is kind of a streaky shooter. And when he is on, he is really on. But he's a good hustler. He's a very good athlete. There have been some they're different players. Christian was a bigger player. Cole is a little bit different in what he does, but there's some similarities between Cole Rosario and Christian Brown. And Christian Brown came in as a freshman. He was, I don't even remember if he was like inside the top 100. He was right around it in his recruiting ranking. Yeah. He played like 18 minutes per game on the team that was the number 1 overall seed as a true freshman. Just to be fun with this, like I think there is a very good chance that it ends up being like Council and then, Elmarko as your other options. But I think from the shooting perspective, I'll go with that. I'll go Peterson at the 1, Melvin Council at the 2, Cole Rosario at the 3, and then Elmarko Jackson as your first player off the bench with Mbia as your first big off the bench.
Man, that's so, and I'm glad I'm kind of seeing things the same as you. I was like, I feel like 1, 4, and 5 are locked in, and I've been wrestling with Elmarko, Melvin Council, Jaden Dawson. I hadn't put Cole Rosario in the mix for starting at 2-3. So I'm so glad to hear you say that. So it really feels like maybe it's 2 of those 4, but then you've got a solid core behind them coming off the bench. Plus, as you said, Paul Mbia, and there's 8, and that's what you need in college basketball, right? And so Derek, I feel great about that. Give me just one dude to look at as like, this is going to be the breakout, like that is like, we kind of seen it coming, but this is the year, man. This dude's going to be a star. Who is that in your head?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit on Marco Jackson. I know I just picked him not to be in the starting lineup there. I do think there's a good chance he gets starts throughout the season. But even if he's the 6th man, like he's still probably playing 20, 22, 25 minutes per game. What I think it's going to be with Elmarko is I think you're going to see some really good flashes throughout the season where I don't know, like he was a really good defender as a freshman, but the game was too fast for him offensively. Yeah, really good athlete. The shot wasn't quite there. Right. If he gets to being like a low 30% 3-point shooter this year and the game does slow down, we know the defense can be there. We know the athleticism can be there. I think you're going to see enough from Elmarko where it feels like a lot of good teams have that like good bench player who can come in and maybe it's not every game, but like they can swing a game or two to their way. And then we go into the following season where, the player in front of them graduates or goes pro. In this case, Darryn Peterson goes pro, Melvin Council graduates. And we go into the following year, so the 2026, this 27 year, going, well, Elmarco's projected to be a starter, but based on some of the flashes he showed, I think he could be one of those players who breaks out to being a star this year. That's the level I think we're going to get to with Elmarco, where it's like you see some of those moments off the bench where it's an improvement from his first year that he played and makes you think that he could be that next stud Bill Self guard the following season.
Man, I sure hope so, because could have used Elmarco in each of the last 2 years in a big way. Obviously, that he was there the freshman year, but really blossoming in a way that you're talking about. And so if he can take that step, for me, the guy I'm really looking to break out in a big way is Flory. Like that's
the obvious one. I
know. I'm like, yeah. And so, but it's like, if either or both of those guys can do it, man, I think it really puts the Jayhawks into a different stratosphere than they otherwise would be. Well, all of these personnel are going to come together to play a bunch of basketball games this season. There are so many fun non-con games that Kansas has on the schedule. But for me, Derek, it's an early February Big 12 slate that's going to be an absolute gauntlet. How's that all going to play out for the Jayhawks? We'll look at it in just a second. Right after I tell you about Square, you got to know that your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There's just certain businesses that really make the neighborhood feel like home. Whether that's a local sports bar that's packed on game days, maybe it's that coffee shop you go in and they know your name and your order the second you step in the door, or maybe it's that corner deli that's been faithfully serving your neighborhood for decades. These are the places that bring people together. And when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Here's what that looks like. It's not just spending money to support the business. It supports the people behind the business and the community that's around it. Those local spots are what make the neighborhood really feel like home. And so many of them run on Square, who is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses all around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Y'all, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. And when you use FanDuel, whether it's parlays, player props, even jumping in on the action live, it makes watching football even more exciting since you've got a little something extra riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. How about some Big 12 regular season championship odds? No surprise, Houston is favored at +160, then BYU +400, Texas Tech +490, then Kansas at +750, followed by Iowa State at +900, and Arizona at +950. 6 teams with all odds better than +1,000. That is crazy and tells you how good the Big 12 is going to be again. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the app today and get started. All right, Derek, let's take some time now to look at the schedule and then make some projections for how this season will play out for the Jayhawks. Big 12 is 18 conference games. That means we get 13 non-con games. And so we start, though, with there's a super fun exhibition at Louisville on Friday, October 24th. Y'all, that weekend is loaded with great exhibition games. Buckle up. It is, 2 weekends away, 3 weekends away? I don't know, but it's going to be insane. Let me just point out the other high major games on the schedule, with all due respect to Green Bay and A&M Corpus and all them. Friday, November 7th, that's the first Friday of the season, the return game to Chapel Hill to play at Carolina. Man, getting these two Blue Bloods playing home and home for the first time ever is crazy cool. An exciting game last year that came right down to it. A furious comeback for Carolina, fell short. Kansas wins. Then we fast forward ahead to Tuesday, November 18th. That's this year's Champions Classic. And we will have two of the highest rated freshmen in the country squaring off in, obviously, Darryn Peterson and Cam Boozer, because Duke and Kansas, that means we'll get Kentucky, Michigan State in the other game. I guess we'll have two of the top freshmen squaring off in the Kansas-Carolina game as well, with Caleb Wilson for the Tar Heels. Then the next week, we get the Players Era Festival on the front end of Thanksgiving. Monday the 24th against Notre Dame. Tuesday the 25th against Syracuse, and a TBD game for Game 3, either on Wednesday or on actual Thanksgiving Day. And then Tuesday, December 2nd against UConn. Looking forward to that one. And then the next Sunday, we got the Border War on December 7th at T-Mobile in Kansas City. And then a return game to NC State on Saturday, December 13th. Really probably could have scheduled that better where it's like, let's just make one trip to Carolina to play the Tar Heels and the Wolfpack. But, there we go. That's a fun game, obviously, because of Darryn Williams going to NC State instead of Kansas and Paul Mbia pulling out of NC State and coming to Kansas. Derek, man, this is a fun non-con. What do you make of it?
It's very tough. It's very tough, and especially for a Kansas team with a lot of new players and counting on, a freshman Darryn Peterson. I don't know. What would you think would be like if I told you right now with 13 games, if I told you Kansas went 10-3 in the non-con, would you say that would be like a respectable?
Huge success. Obviously, it depends on who those losses are to, but let's say you lose in Chapel Hill and you lose to UConn. And then maybe whoever the third game of Players Era Festival is, or to Duke, right, in Champions Classic. If it's those 3 games, that's all very respectable, right? You want to win the bye games. I know everybody slips up sometimes, but I would take 10-3 going into Big 12 play and be like all thumbs up, because I feel like those first 2 Players Era games are very winnable. NC State's going to be good. That's going to be a tough road game in Raleigh, but I feel like if you can pick off a couple of those like blue blood high major type games, finish 10-3, absolutely I would take that.
Yeah, I think if you can find a way to split at North Carolina and Duke, if you find a way to, I guess, between Connecticut, Missouri, NC State, can you go 2-1 there?
Yeah,
and then maybe you can get out of it with 2 losses. But yeah, I think 3 would be totally fine if that were the case.
Looking ahead then to the Big 12 play, which is always crazy. Derek, it's this stretch at the end of January to Valentine's Day that's wild to me. Hosting BYU on January 31st, at Texas Tech on February 2nd, Utah sandwiched in the middle. Thank you for that breather at home. Then Arizona comes to town on February 9th. All due respect to Utah and Coach Jensen. And then
they got Kansas last year, so
that's right. That's right. Payback is coming. And then on Valentine's Day at Iowa State, dude, that is a crazy tough stretch, Derek. How are they going to navigate?
Well, first of all, I don't know why we're only getting the BYU game once. That is a huge mistake by the Big 12. I mean, that's such a good TV rating boost to have AJ DeBonson. When they played in high school, you had a game where one of them put up like 61 and the other put up like 50 something. So like, why would you not want that twice? I don't know. Anyway, I mean, obviously the sanctity of Allen Fieldhouse should hopefully help you there. You would think with the getting at least a couple of those at home. Obviously, like you said, the Utah game is one that's one you need to take care of there. If you can win those 2 home games, BYU, Arizona, in addition to the home game against Utah, at the very least, walking out of that 3-2 isn't the worst thing in the world. And then again, if you even win one of those 2 on the road, Texas Tech or Iowa State, you're going to be sitting pretty.
Dude, yes, absolutely. I mean, again, one of the nice things is that in this day and age where we're not just looking at records, but really the selection committee taking into account who you played, I think is such a big deal. And it's wild as we lay this out to realize how many of the other elite 5-star freshmen Darryn Peterson is going to be going up against. Caleb Wilson, AJ DeBansa, Cam Boozer. This is so much fun, and I love it, and that's what we're always looking for. Somehow we got to figure out how to get the Jayhawks in Tennessee to play so we get some Nate Ament, and then we'd really
Mikel Brown with Louisville in the exhibition.
Dude, at least, that's a great dude. He's such a good guard. I wonder if they'll guard each other. That's going to be fun. I cannot wait. So, Derek, all that said, we look at that. Where do you project Kansas to finish in Big 12 play? I know we kind of said like 10-3 would be a nice non-con. So what do you think about for a Big 12 record and finish?
Yeah, so I mean, Houston is just such like a barrier in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what finished the Big 12 like third. I will going back to making that prediction, like will Kansas finish in the top 3 again this year? Like I'll say that they're at least able to get in there. Again, it could be a tie. So last year you had Houston at first at 19-1, Tech at second 15-5, and then 2 teams tied for third at 14-6. I'll say Kansas gets to around that mark, 14-6, 13-7, 15-5, somewhere in that range that gets them tied third, or even in the top 2, possibly maybe it's tied second or something like that. And I think if you do that in the Big 12 with as difficult as the non-con is, as long as, you do go 10-3 or something in the non-con, that might get you a 2 or 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. And I think that would be a very respectable season for KU. I mean, I think a lot of places in the preseason rankings have them closer to, I don't know, the 15 to 25 range. I've even seen some that don't even have them ranked or have them in the 30s, which I think that's a little crazy
That's
for my
low, man.
liking.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's at least out there. And so, if you're saying, hey, you're preseason number 18, that projects you to be in a 4 or 5 seed, right? So I think that'd be a very good season for KU, and I think that's definitely doable for them to accomplish.
Derek, let me give you what I see as kind of a floor and ceiling for Kansas, and you push back on it. For the floor, it's like Flory can't take the next step forward. Darryn is really good, but not like world-changingly special. The portal guys aren't great. The shooting's missing. Wind up finishing like 5th or 6th in the Big 12, 7 or 8 seed, and losing the first round. On the other side, the ceiling, Darryn Peterson is all-world and then some. Wins that Wooden Award you've been talking about. Flory is that next great Kansas big, as you said earlier. Everything's clicking. Kansas is Kansas again. Finish maybe second in the Big 12, get that 2 or 3 seed and make it to the Elite 8, or, who knows when you get in the tournament, right? But I think that's like a reasonable expectation. Floor, ceiling, push back on it.
Yeah, so I do think with Flory, one of the big things that he's going to bring is offensive rebounding. I think that's the case with Paul Mbia as well. And with Hunter Dickinson, elite defensive rebounder. He wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't view him as being like as elite of an offensive rebounder per se. In fact, he was 205th in the country in offensive rebound rate, but top 35 in the country in defensive rebound rate. Flory brings more offensive rebounding. And I think they're going to be a better offensive rebounding team. And when you give Bill Self extra possessions, he takes advantage. The last time you can go back to Kansas being a top 50 offensive rebound rate team in the country was 2022. They won the national championship. Before that would be 2020. They were going to be the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. Before that, 2017. Again, 1 seed, they made it to the Elite 8. Before that, you go back to 2015, they got a 2 seed that year. 2014, they got a 2 seed that year. 2011, they were a 1 seed that year and ended up making the Elite 8. 2010, they were 22nd that year. They got the number 1 overall seed. So like on and on. Point being, when you give Bill Self extra possessions and they're good offensive rebounding, they tend to figure it out offensively. Then I go back to the idea of having that All-American guard like Darryn Peterson. I think that on its own is going to, I think this is going to be one of the 5 best defenses in the country. Wingspan of this team is incredible. Flory Badunga, 7'2" wingspan. Bryson Tiller, 7'2" wingspan. Paul Mbia, 7'9" wingspan. Darryn Peterson, 6'10" wingspan. Elmarco Jackson has a plus wingspan. Melvin Council with the plus wingspan. Cole Rosario is a good athlete and good wingspan. I think just the athleticism, the length of this team, and the versatility that they're going to allow Bill Self to coach the way he wants to coach, even if the shooting's not there. They weren't a great shooting team in 2020. I think that could, certainly hurt them this season. But I look to a team like Michigan State last year, who surprised a lot of people, a very highly prestigious program. They weren't being really ranked by many people or ranked very highly. They end up getting a 2 seed and having a fantastic season. I think this team will be better shooting than that Michigan State team was. But that's kind of where you're looking at it too, right? They had a young freshman who was kind of leading the way for them too. That's kind of where I look at this. Now, there is that world where, if the shooting is really bad and Flory doesn't take the next step, maybe they are closer to that 4 or 5 seed. But I definitely think the floor is still higher than what ended up being the case last season.
That's a great way to put it, man. It's great and so true about the offensive rebounding, Derek. I'm glad you brought all those numbers, and that's really helpful to understand. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this team is probably being slept on pretty severely because it's just like, I think with the length, the capability, just the talent level, less defensive liability from your starting 5, right? Like it's just I love that you said, I think the floor is higher this year than it was last year. And I think that's a good point. But we've always got to look at that sliding scale of the floor and the ceiling. Sorry, I'm just knocking my microphone out of the way. And man, it's going to be really interesting to see. We'll learn a lot against Louisville. And then at that return game at North Carolina, another team that isn't getting the benefit of the doubt. It's interesting to see how those 2 teams kind of parallel themselves because of what's happened in recent years, and understandably so, right? Like they probably don't deserve the benefit of the doubt, either of them right now. So that'll be a lot of fun. Derek Johnson, my man, you are the absolute best. Folks, make sure you check him out on Locked On Jayhawks. Great stuff. Again, we are 4 weeks to the day from the start of the season on Monday, November 3rd. It's going to be electric. Absolutely cannot wait. Give Locked On Jayhawks a follow. If you haven't followed us on Locked On College Basketball, make sure to do that. If you haven't dived into the Locked On College Basketball Discord, we'd love to see you there as well. That link is in the show notes. Absolutely free to join. You guys, as always, I want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Pope. Shouts to the McBruins. And until tomorrow, peace.